Dr. Zephyr Kolthani adjusted the neural interface headset one more time, her 6 fingers dancing across the holographic controls with practiced precision. The research vessel in lightened pursuit drifted silently through the debris field of what had once been the Terran colonial fleet's final stand against the Void Swarm 300 years ago. Another human derelict detected, bearing 27 Mark IV, announced Navigation Officer Dextar from his station. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked rhythmically as he worked, a nervous habit common among his species when dealing with human artifacts. It's significantly larger than the others we've cataloged. Zephyr's elongated ears twitched with interest. As the lead xenoarchaeologist for the Galactic Preservation Society, she had spent the better part of a decade studying human relics. The extinct species fascinated her in ways she couldn't quite explain to her colleagues. While most civilizations developed along predictable paths of technological advancement, humans have been chaotic, unpredictable, and surprisingly resourceful for such a short-lived species. "Bring us alongside," she ordered, rising from her research station. Through the viewport, the twisted metal remains of countless ships created a haunting graveyard against the star field. Most were barely recognizable fragments, torn apart by weapons that defied conventional understanding. But this new contact was different. "Professor," called out sensor technician Villa, her amphibious features glistening under the ship's artificial lighting. "I'm reading something unusual about this vessel. The energy signature is inconsistent with a dead hulk." Zephyr moved to the sensor station, her brow ridges furrowing as she studied the readings. The ship before them was massive, easily 3 times the size of their research vessel. Its hull bore the characteristic angular design of human military architecture, but something was wrong with the damage patterns. Where other ships in the graveyard showed catastrophic destruction from the Void Swarm's bioweapons, this vessel appeared to have shut down rather than been destroyed. "Life support systems are completely inactive," Villa continued, her webbed fingers adjusting the sensor array. "But there's a low-level power signature coming from the core sections. It's almost like the ship is sleeping." "Sleeping?" Dextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for nervous laughter among his people. "Ships don't sleep, Villa. They're either operational or they're not." Zephyr wasn't so sure. Human technology had always been unconventional, often incorporating biological components and adaptive systems that other species found disturbing. Their artificial intelligences were rumored to be truly sapient, not merely sophisticated programs. Of course, those are just stories now. With the humans extinct and their technology largely incomprehensible to other species, such claims couldn't be verified. "Begin deep scanning protocols," she ordered. "I want to know everything about this vessel before we attempt boarding. And contact the Meridian Research Station. They'll want to know we found something this significant." The next several hours passed in careful analysis. The ship's designation, barely visible on the scarred hull, read UCS Defiance. According to the galactic databases, it had been one of the last human dreadnoughts, reported destroyed during the Battle of Kepler's Rest. Yet here it was, intact, and somehow maintaining minimal power after 3 centuries of drift. "I'm detecting extensive internal damage," reported Chief Engineer Korth, his insectoid head tilting as he studied the structural scans. "But the critical systems appear to be encased in some sort of adaptive armor. It's like the ship reorganized itself to protect its most vital components." "That's impossible," Dextar muttered. "No known technology can restructure matter at the molecular level during combat conditions." Zephyr was beginning to suspect that their understanding of human capabilities had been severely underestimated. The historical records painted them as a fierce but technologically inferior species that had been overwhelmed by the Void Swarm's superior numbers and bioweapons. But this ship suggested something else entirely. "Professor," Villa's voice carried a note of concern. "The power signature just spiked. Something's happening inside the vessel." The main viewer shifted to show the human dreadnought, its dark hull suddenly illuminated by a faint blue glow emanating from what appeared to be sensor arrays along its flanks. The light pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. "It's scanning us," whispered Korth, his compound eyes wide with alarm. "The ship is actively scanning us." Zephyr felt a chill run down her spine. If the vessel was indeed active, then they had potentially awakened something that had been dormant for 3 centuries. Human military technology was notoriously unpredictable, and their artificial intelligences were said to be fiercely protective of their vessels and crews. "Should we withdraw to a safe distance?" Dextar asked, his hand hovering over the emergency thrust controls. Before Zephyr could respond, the communications array crackled to life. A voice emerged from the speakers, speaking in perfect galactic standard despite its obviously human origins. The tone was measured, curious, but with an underlying note of danger that made everyone on the bridge freeze. "Unknown vessel. This is the United Colonial Ship Defiance. You have been scanning our hull for the past 4 hours and 17 minutes. State your intentions and identity, or withdraw to a minimum distance of 50,000 kilometers. You have 60 seconds to comply." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Zephyr realized that her heart was beating so fast it felt like it might burst from her chest. The implications of what they were hearing crashed over her like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a human ship. This was a human ship with a living crew. But that was impossible. Humans have been extinct for 300 years. Everyone knew that. The Void Swarm had consumed their worlds, destroyed their fleets, and hunted down the survivors until none remained. It was one of the galaxy's greatest tragedies, memorialized in countless museums and historical archives. 50 seconds remaining. The voice continued with mechanical precision. "We are monitoring your weapon systems and shield configurations. Any attempt to target this vessel will be considered an act of war." Zephyr found her voice at last. "This is Dr. Zephyr Kolthani of the research vessel Enlightened Pursuit, operating under the authority of the Galactic Preservation Society. We are conducting archaeological research on the battlefield sites of the human Void Swarm conflict. We mean no harm and carry no weapons." There was a long pause, during which the blue glow along the human ship's hull intensified. When the voice returned, it carried a note of confusion and something that might have been grief. "Dr. Kolthani, our records indicate that the Galactic Preservation Society is a cultural organization dedicated to studying extinct civilizations. We are not extinct. However, our chronometer indicates that we have been in emergency hibernation for 297 years for months and 16 days. Please explain the current state of human civilization in the galaxy." Zephyr closed her eyes, trying to find the words to explain the impossible to someone who should not exist. Around her, the bridge crew waited in stunned silence as she prepared to tell the sole survivors of humanity that they were, in fact, the last of their kind. The human ship continued to pulse with that steady blue light, like a heartbeat in the darkness, waiting for an answer that would shatter everything its crew believed about the universe they had awakened to find. Commander Sarah Chun felt the hibernation fluid drain from her lungs as the emergency revival sequence completed its cycle. Every nerve in her body screamed in protest as consciousness returned after what felt like an endless nightmare of half-dreams and fractured memories. The last thing she remembered clearly was giving the order to implement the Phoenix Protocol as Void Swarm bioships swarmed around the Defiance like parasites attacking a dying whale. "Status report," she croaked, her throat raw from the revival process. The bridge around her was dimly lit by emergency power, and she could see the silhouettes of her senior staff emerging from their own hibernation pods. "Commander," came the synthetic voice of Arthur, the ship's artificial intelligence. "Emergency hibernation cycle complete. Revival successful for 437 crew members. We have been dormant for 297 years for months and 16 days. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Nearly 3 centuries. The war against the Void Swarm, the desperate evacuation of Earth's colonies, the final stand at Kepler's Rest, all of it was ancient history now. She forced herself to focus on immediate concerns while her mind reeled from the implications. Ship status. Hull integrity at 67%. Primary weapons systems offline. Engines operating at minimal capacity. However, I have good news, Commander. A research vessel has made contact. They identified themselves as the Galactic Preservation Society, investigating what they termed the human void swarm conflict. Sarah laughed bitterly. A conflict? As if humanity's extinction was just another historical footnote to be cataloged and filed away. She hauled herself out of the hibernation pod, her legs shaking as she tried to remember how to walk. Around her, her bridge crew was going through similar struggles, but she could see the same grim determination in their eyes that had carried them through the darkest days of the war. "Put me through to this research vessel," she ordered, moving toward her command chair with careful steps. "Already established, Commander. Dr. Zephyr Colthani is standing by." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what was obviously an alien ship. Sarah had encountered dozens of species during humanity's brief time among the stars, but she had never seen beings quite like these. The lead figure appeared to be female, with elongated features and ears that reminded her of ancient Earth legends about elves. Her expression was a mixture of scientific fascination and what looked like genuine sympathy. "Commander Chun," Dr. Colthani began carefully, "I cannot imagine what you must be feeling right now. To awaken and find that so much time has passed. I want you to know that humanity is remembered with great respect throughout the galaxy. Your species' courage in the face of the Void Swarm has become legendary." "Legendary," Sarah repeated, her voice flat. "How nice. Tell me, Dr. Colthani, what happened to the rest of my species? How many colonies survived? How many ships made it to the Outer Rim territories?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Sarah felt something cold and hard settle in her chest as the alien scientist struggled to find words. "I am sorry, Commander. According to all historical records, humanity was completely exterminated by the Void Swarm. The last confirmed human settlements fell approximately 50 years after the Battle of Kepler's Rest. There have been no confirmed human survivors until today." Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, she had locked away the grief and despair that threatened to consume her. There would be time for mourning later. Right now, her crew needed her to be strong. "I see. Then, I suppose we have some decisions to make." She turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, who had just finished climbing out of her own hibernation pod. "Santos, I need a complete assessment of our combat capabilities. Assume we're going to need them." "Aye, Commander," Santos replied without question, though Sarah could see the confusion in her eyes. Dr. Colthani leaned forward on the screen. "Commander, if I may ask, what are you planning? The Void Swarm was destroyed over 2 centuries ago. The galaxy is at peace now. There's no need for combat preparations." Sarah turned back to the screen, and for the first time since awakening, she allowed herself a smile. It was not a pleasant expression. "Dr. Colthani, you said that humanity is remembered as courageous. That's touching, but it's also incomplete. We weren't just courageous. We were stubborn, vengeful, and absolutely unwilling to go quietly into the night. The Void Swarm may have destroyed our worlds and killed our people, but they made one critical mistake." "What mistake was that, Commander?" "They left survivors." Sarah's smile grew colder. "Arthur, bring all systems online. I want a complete analysis of current galactic political structures, military capabilities, and technological development. If we're truly the last humans in the universe, then we have work to do." The ship around them began to hum with increasing energy as dormant systems came online for the first time in 3 centuries. Through the viewports, the research vessel could be seen backing away as the massive human dreadnought began to shed the accumulated debris of its long slumber. "Commander," came the voice of Dr. Colthani, now tinged with concern, "what kind of work are you referring to?" Sarah's expression had become stone. "The kind of work that 437 humans with nothing left to lose and a fully operational warship can accomplish." "Arthur," scan the surrounding space. I want to know if any Void Swarm bioships survived their supposed extinction. Scanning now, Commander. I am detecting several dormant biosignatures consistent with Void Swarm genetic markers approximately 2 light hours from our current position. They appear to be in some form of hibernation state. The bridge crew exchanged grim looks. Even after 3 centuries, their ancient enemy survived in the dark spaces between stars, waiting for another opportunity to feed on the galaxy's civilizations. Dr. Colthani's voice carried a note of alarm. Commander, surely you're not planning to engage hibernating bioships? The Void Swarm has been contained for centuries. The current galactic civilizations have protocols in place to monitor and contain any remaining organisms. Sarah laughed, and the sound held no humor whatsoever. Doctor, with all due respect to your galactic civilizations and their protocols, they clearly didn't finish the job. My species specialized in finishing jobs. It's what we did best. She stood from her command chair, feeling strength return to her legs as purpose filled her mind. Around her, her crew was moving with increasing efficiency as training and muscle memory overrode the disorientation of their long sleep. Santos, how long until weapon systems are fully operational? 18 hours for primary batteries, 6 hours for secondary systems. Commander, make it 12 and 4. We've been sleeping for 3 centuries. I think it's time we reminded the galaxy why humanity earned its reputation. Sarah turned back to the communication screen, where Dr. Colthani watched with obvious growing concern. Doctor, I suggest you withdraw to a safe distance. The Defiance has some old business to settle, and humans have never been particularly concerned about collateral damage when it comes to protecting the innocent. As the research vessel began to retreat, Sarah allowed herself one moment of genuine emotion. Her species was gone, her world was ash, and everything she had ever known was dust in the cosmic wind. But she was still here, her ship was still functional, and there were still enemies to fight. It would have to be enough. The Defiance cut through space like a blade of dark metal and barely contained fury. Commander Chun stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as they approached the coordinates where Arthur had detected the dormant Void Swarm bioships. 12 hours had passed since their awakening, and every system aboard the massive dreadnought hummed with lethal efficiency. Contact bearing 047 Mark 12, announced sensor specialist Thompson, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were approaching. Multiple biosignatures, estimated count between 30 and 40 individual organisms. They're clustered around what appears to be a dead star system. Sarah studied the display with cold calculation. The Void Swarm had always been attracted to dead systems, feeding on the residual energy of collapsed stars and using the gravitational anomalies to hide their hibernation clusters. It was a survival strategy that had served them well, allowing small groups to remain hidden for centuries before emerging to consume everything in their path. Any signs of current activity? She asked. Negative, Commander. All bioships appear to be in deep hibernation. Energy signatures are minimal, consistent with long-term dormancy. Dr. Colthani's research vessel had maintained a respectful distance, but Sarah could still see it on the edge of their sensors. The alien scientists had been sending increasingly urgent communications, pleading for caution and requesting permission to notify the Galactic Peacekeeping Force of their intentions. Sarah had ignored them all. Commander, came Arthur's synthetic voice, I am receiving a priority transmission from the research vessel. Dr. Colthani claims to have information about current galactopolitics that may be relevant to our mission. Sarah considered for a moment. She had no particular desire to drag innocent aliens into humanity's final war, but information was always valuable. Put her through. The main screen shifted to show Dr. Colthani's concerned face. Commander Chun, please, you must listen to me. The galaxy has changed dramatically since your time. There are now over 600 species in the Galactic Confederation, and they have established careful protocols for dealing with Void Swarm remnants. 600 species, Sarah mused. Impressive. The galaxy was much smaller when we were fighting for our lives. Tell me, Doctor, how many of those species have actually fought the swarm? Well, none directly, but the historical records are extensive, and the containment protocols have been developed based on 3 centuries of study and observation. Sarah's laugh was harsh. Study and observation. Doctor, let me share something that your historical records might have missed. The void swarm doesn't stay contained. They adapt, they learn, and they wait. Every hibernation cycle makes them stronger, more resilient. Your 600 species are sitting on top of a galaxy-wide time bomb, and they don't even know it. But the peacekeeping force has advanced weaponry, energy shields that can contain bioship attacks, and sophisticated early warning systems. Energy shields, repeated Lieutenant Commander Santos from the tactical station, her voice dripping with disdain. Commander, should I explain to the good doctor why energy shields don't work against bioweapons? Sarah held up a hand. Dr. Colthani, I appreciate your concern, but you're operating under some dangerous misconceptions. The Void Swarm doesn't attack technology the way conventional forces do. They corrupt it, subvert it, turn it against itself. Every piece of advanced technology in your galaxy is a potential weapon in their hands once they wake up. On the tactical display, the hibernating bioships appeared as red dots clustered around the dead star. Each dot represented a creature the size of a city block, capable of consuming entire worlds and using the absorbed biomass to reproduce exponentially. Sarah had seen entire star systems reduced to empty space in a matter of weeks once the swarm reached critical mass. Approaching optimal firing range, announced Santos. All weapons systems show green. We have clear targeting solutions on 34 distinct bioships. Very good. Arm all nuclear warheads and prepare the quantum torpedoes. I want every single organism in that cluster reduced to component atoms. Dr. Colthani's voice carried a note of panic. Commander, you can't simply destroy them without proper authorization. The Galactic Confederation has protocols, procedures that must be followed. At the very least, you need to allow our scientists to study these specimens before what? Sarah's voice cut through the aliens' protests like ice. Before your scientists accidentally wake them up? Before some bureaucrat decides that a few live specimens would be valuable for research purposes? Doctor, I've seen this story before. It always ends the same way. She turned to her weapons officer. Fire when ready. Commander, wait. Dr. Colthani's image leaned forward desperately. If you do this, the Confederation will consider you a rogue element. They'll send fleets to stop you. You'll be hunted across the galaxy. Sarah smiled grimly. Let them try. Arthur, record a message for broadcast on all Confederation frequencies. Recording, Commander. Sarah straightened her uniform and faced the communications pickup with the bearing of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. To the governments, military forces, and citizens of the Galactic Confederation. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Colonial Ship Defiance, representing the last military unit of a human species. We have awakened to find our civilization extinct and our ancient enemy still lurking in the shadows of dead stars. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. The Void Swarm is not contained. It is not extinct. It is merely sleeping, waiting for the right moment to emerge and consume everything you have built. We're going to hunt down every last bioship in this galaxy and destroy them completely. This is not a request for permission. This is a statement of intent. The weapons display showed all systems armed and ready. The hibernating Void Swarm cluster filled the targeting screen like a malignant tumor waiting to metastasize. To any government that attempts to interfere with our mission, know this. Humanity died fighting these creatures, and we will not allow their sacrifice to be meaningless. Stand aside, or be considered an obstacle to the survival of galactic civilization. Sarah nodded to Santos, who pressed the firing controls with grim satisfaction. The Defiance unleashed 3 centuries of accumulated fury in a barrage that lit up the space around the dead star like a newborn sun. Nuclear fire and quantum energy tore through the hibernating bioships, reducing each organism to its component particles before they could even register the attack. On the tactical display, 34 red dots winked out of existence in the space of 12 seconds. All targets eliminated, reported Santos. No surviving biosignatures detected. Dr. Colthani stared at the display in shock. You just destroyed an irreplaceable scientific resource. Those specimens could have taught us so much about void swarm biology, their hibernation cycles, their dash, their weaknesses. Sarah interrupted. Doctor, I already know their weaknesses. Fire, radiation, and the absolute refusal to let them wake up. That's all the science we need. She turned to her navigation officer. Dextar had mentioned other debris fields in this sector. Plot a course for the next concentration of swarm biosignatures. It's going to be a long war, but we have time. As the Defiance turned away from the expanding cloud of vaporized biomass, Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 34 creatures that would never again threaten innocent lives. It was a small victory, but it was a beginning. Behind them, Dr. Colthani's research vessel hung motionless in space, its crew trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The age of careful study and cautious observation was over. The age of the last humans had begun, and it would be written in fire and the screams of dying bioships. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had earned its reputation, one destroyed enemy at a time. Admiral Vexhan of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force stood before the emergency session of the Confederation Council, his forearms gesturing emphatically as he addressed the assembled representatives of 600 worlds. The massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy as beings from across the galaxy tried to process the implications of what had happened in the Kepler debris field. In the past 72 hours, he announced, his voice carrying across the chamber through universal translators, this rogue human vessel has destroyed 4 separate void swarm hibernation clusters, eliminated over 200 bioorganisms, and completely ignored 17 separate cease and desist orders from Confederation authorities. Counselor Thura X of the Alturan Republic raised one of her crystalline appendages. Admiral, surely one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot pose a significant threat to galactic security. Our records indicate that human technology was considered primitive by modern standards. Admiral Vexhan's mandibles clicked in what passed for bitter laughter among his species. Counselor, that primitive vessel has been moving through our space for 3 days, and we cannot track it. Our most advanced sensor networks lose contact with the ship at will. It appears where it chooses, destroys its targets with weapons that our scientists cannot identify, and vanishes before our response fleets can intercept. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter as representatives conferred with their advisors. The Galactic Peacekeeping Force was the most technologically advanced military organization in known space, equipped with quantum shields, reality distortion weapons, and artificial intelligences that could process tactical information at the speed of thought. The idea that a 300-year-old human ship could outmaneuver them was deeply unsettling. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Zethmar of the Hegemony Worlds, we should consider the possibility that this Commander Chun has a point. Our containment protocols for void swarm remnants have never been tested against active organisms. The containment protocols have worked perfectly for 3 centuries, protested Dr. Yithkel, the Confederation's chief xenobiologist. We have monitored every known hibernation site, established quarantine zones, and maintained constant surveillance. The swarm has remained dormant throughout this period. Admiral Vexhan activated the central holographic display, showing a real-time galactic map marked with red zones. Dr. Yithkel, this human ship has located and destroyed 17 hibernation clusters that we didn't even know existed. Either our monitoring systems are inadequate, or these humans possess intelligence gathering capabilities far beyond our understanding. The map showed the path of the Defiance as a white line cutting through previously unknown swarm territories. Each red zone represented sites where biosignatures have been detected and eliminated before Confederation forces could investigate. Counselor Thyra-X studied the display with growing alarm. How was this possible? Our deep space monitoring network covers 97% of the galaxy. Commander Chin's vessel appears to be using some form of adaptive scanning technology, Admiral Vexhan explained. They can detect hibernating bioships from distances that our sensors consider impossible, and they seem to understand swarm behavioral patterns that we've never encountered in our research. At that moment, the chamber's communication systems activated, and a familiar human face appeared on the main screen. Commander Sarah Chun looked tired but determined, her uniform showing signs of the continuous combat operations her crew had been conducting. Members of the Galactic Confederation, she began without preamble. This is Commander Chun of the UCS Defiance. I understand that you've been discussing my ship's activities, so I thought I should address your concerns directly. The chamber fell silent as 600 species focused their attention on the last representative of humanity. Over the past 3 days, we have eliminated 237 void swarm bioships from 17 different hibernation clusters. We have also identified 43 additional clusters that we will be targeting in the coming weeks. I'm transmitting the coordinates of these sites to your military command as we speak. Admiral Vexhan quickly checked his tactical display and confirmed that detailed location data was indeed flowing into their systems. The information was incredibly precise, down to individual bioship positions within each cluster. Commander Chun, Counselor Thyra-X addressed the screen. While we appreciate your thoroughness in eliminating these organisms, you must understand that your actions are creating significant political instability. Several member worlds are demanding military intervention to stop what they perceive as unprovoked aggression. Sarah's expression hardened. Unprovoked aggression? Counselor, let me share some information that your historical records apparently missed. The display shifted to show tactical data from the Defiance's computers. Three-dimensional maps appeared, showing swarm movement patterns, breeding cycles, and hibernation behaviors that had never been documented by Confederation science. The Void Swarm doesn't hibernate randomly, Sarah continued. They follow specific patterns, establishing clusters near gravitational anomalies that allow for rapid deployment once they wake up. Each cluster is positioned to maximize coverage of inhabited systems within a 50 light-year radius. The data was staggering. The hibernation clusters formed a network that could theoretically engulf the entire galaxy within a matter of decades if the organisms were awakened simultaneously. Moreover, Sarah added, our analysis indicates that the hibernation cycle is not indefinite. These organisms are programmed to wake up automatically after a certain period. Our best estimates suggest that the next awakening event will occur within the next 20 to 50 years. Dr. Yithkel spoke up nervously. Commander, our research has never indicated any such automatic awakening mechanism. These organisms have remained dormant for 3 centuries without any signs of activity. Doctor, with respect, your research has been conducted from a safe distance using passive sensors. We've been boarding derelict bioships and examining their biological systems directly. The awakening mechanism is encoded in their genetic structure, a failsafe to ensure species survival even if individual clusters are discovered. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes reflecting the weight of terrible knowledge. In other words, whether you like it or not, the Void Swarm is going to wake up. The only question is whether we destroy them first, or wait for them to start consuming your worlds. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives shouted questions and demands. Admiral Vexhan struggled to maintain order while trying to process the implications of what they had just learned. Commander, he finally managed to say, assuming your analysis is correct, why not work with our forces? Surely a coordinated effort would be more effective than your lone ship operating independently. Sarah's smile held no warmth. Admiral, 3 days ago your forces were completely unaware of 17 major swarm clusters. Your containment protocols consist of monitoring organisms that you thought were permanently dormant. Your military doctrine assumes enemies that fight according to conventional rules of engagement. She gestured off-screen, and the tactical display showed current Confederation fleet positions relative to the newly discovered threat sites. By my calculations, it would take your combined fleets approximately 6 months to organize a coordinated response to even half of the identified clusters. During that time, the organisms will continue their awakening cycle, and some may achieve active status before you can respond. Then, what do you propose? Demanded Counselor Zethmar. I propose that you stay out of our way, and let us finish what we started 300 years ago, Sarah replied bluntly. The Defiance is specifically designed and equipped to fight the Void Swarm. Our crew has direct combat experience against these organisms. We know their weaknesses, their tactics, and their limitations. Admiral Vexhan felt a growing sense of unease. And if we refuse to allow this? Sarah's expression became stone. Then, you'll be protecting the very creatures that will eventually consume your civilization. Admiral, I've seen entire star systems reduced to empty space by the swarm. I watched my own species die, fighting to stop them. I will not allow that to happen again, regardless of your political concerns. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. On the tactical display, the white line, representing the Defiance's path, continued its relentless progress through the galaxy, marking each destroyed cluster as another small victory in humanity's final war. Admiral Vexhan realized that the Confederation faced an impossible choice: trust the last humans to protect them from an enemy they barely understood, or risk galactic annihilation to maintain political control over a situation that was already spiraling beyond their comprehension. 6 weeks had passed since the Defiance began its solitary war against the sleeping Void Swarm, and Commander Sarachin stood on her bridge studying a tactical display that showed the culmination of everything they had worked toward. Before them lay the Nexus, a massive gravitational anomaly at the galaxy's core, where their deepest scans had revealed the swarm's primary hibernation facility. Arthur, final count on biosignatures. Confirmed count of 4,732 individual organisms, Commander. This represents approximately 70% of all surviving Void Swarm bioships in the galaxy. They appear to be arranged in a complex network around the central gravity well, with clear signs of recent awakening activity. Sarah felt her blood run cold. They had been racing against time, destroying cluster after cluster while watching for signs that the Great Awakening was beginning. Now it seemed they were too late. The largest concentration of swarm organisms in known space was already stirring from its 3-century slumber. How long until full awakening? She asked. Based on current bioelectrical activity patterns, I estimate between 18 and 36 hours before the organisms achieve full consciousness and mobility. Lieutenant Commander Santos looked up from her tactical station. Commander, we've eliminated over 800 bioships in the past 6 weeks, but this is beyond our capabilities. Even with everything we've got, we can't destroy nearly 5,000 organisms before they wake up. Sarah nodded grimly. She had known this moment would come eventually. The Defiance was powerful, but it was still just one ship with a crew of 437 against an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. But there was one option remaining, one final card that humanity had never played because the cost was too high. Arthur, initiate Phoenix Protocol, final sequence. The artificial intelligence's response carried an unusual note of what almost sounded like emotion. Commander, the Phoenix Protocol final sequence will result in complete destruction of this vessel and all aboard. Are you certain this is the correct course of action? I am certain. Calculate optimal positioning for maximum effect against the swarm network. Around the bridge, her senior staff exchanged glances but said nothing. They had all known this possibility existed from the moment they awakened. The Phoenix Protocol had been humanity's ultimate contingency plan, a way to ensure that even in defeat, they could deny the enemy a final victory. Commander, came Dr. Colthani's voice over the communications channel. The alien scientist's research vessel had been following them at a respectful distance throughout their campaign, documenting everything for posterity. What are you planning? Sarah activated the external communications array. Dr. Kolthani, I need you to withdraw to a minimum distance of 100 light-years and prepare to transmit everything you've recorded to the Confederation Council. What happens here needs to be remembered. Commander, you're frightening me. What is the Phoenix Protocol? Sarah smiled sadly. The Phoenix Protocol is why the Void Swarm never managed to capture a single human ship during the war. Every vessel in our fleet was equipped with a quantum cascade device capable of turning the ship's entire mass into energy. We never used it because we kept hoping we could find another way to win. She looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing the same grim determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. But we're not trying to win anymore, Doctor. We're trying to make sure that when we're gone, we take our enemies with us. The tactical display showed the optimal approach vector to the swarm network center. The Defiance would need to penetrate deep into the gravitational anomaly, placing itself at the heart of the hibernation cluster before initiating the cascade sequence. All stations, prepare for final approach, Sarah announced over the ship's intercom. This is Commander Chen speaking. In approximately 1 hour, the UCS Defiance will complete its final mission. Every member of this crew has served with honor, courage, and distinction. We are the last guardians of humanity's legacy, and we will ensure that legacy ends with victory rather than defeat. She paused, feeling the weight of 3 centuries of human history settling on her shoulders. The Void Swarm believes that by destroying our worlds and our people, they have eliminated us as a threat. They're about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our absolute refusal to surrender, no matter the cost. The Defiance began its approach to the Nexus, its hull groaning under the stress of the gravitational forces surrounding the anomaly. On the tactical display, they could see individual bioships beginning to show increased activity as the awakening process accelerated. Dr. Kolthani, Sarah said into the communications pickup, I want you to deliver a message to the Confederation Council. Tell them that the Void Swarm's primary breeding facility will be destroyed, but there are still scattered clusters throughout the galaxy. Tell them to hunt down every last organism, to never let their guard down, and to remember that freedom isn't free. Commander, please, there has to be another way. The Confederation can send fleets. We can coordinate a massive assault dash. Doctor, there's no time. By the time your fleets arrive, these organisms will be fully awake and spreading throughout the galaxy. This is the only way to stop them. The ship shuddered as they penetrated deeper into the anomaly's gravitational field. Around them, massive bioships began to drift in their direction, drawn by the energy signatures of an active starship. Some were already showing signs of consciousness, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Optimal position achieved, announced Navigation Officer Kim. We are at the geometric center of the swarm network. Sarah took a deep breath and placed her hand on the Phoenix Protocol activation console. 3 centuries after the fall of Earth, after the destruction of humanity's colonies and the extinction of her species, this was how it would end. Not with defeat and surrender, but with one final act of defiance that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Arthur, are you ready? I am ready, Commander. It has been an honor to serve with you and the crew of the Defiance. Sarah looked one last time at her bridge crew, at the faces of the last humans in the universe. They were exhausted, battle-scarred, and facing certain death, but their eyes held no fear. Only grim satisfaction that they had found a way to complete their mission. For Earth, she said quietly, and activated the Phoenix Protocol. The quantum cascade began at the ship's core, converting matter to energy in an expanding sphere of destruction that consumed the Defiance and everything within a 50 light-year radius. The bioships, caught in the midst of their awakening cycle, were vaporized before they could even register the threat. The gravitational anomaly itself collapsed, taking with it the last major concentration of void swarm organisms in the galaxy. From her safe distance, Dr. Kolthani watched as a new star briefly blazed in the galactic core burning brighter than anything in the surrounding space before fading back to darkness. When the sensors cleared, there was nothing left but empty space and the lingering radiation signature of humanity's final victory. The last humans were gone, but they had kept their promise. The galaxy was safe, the ancient enemy was broken, and somewhere in the expanding wavefront of that artificial star, the echo of humanity's defiance would travel forever through the cosmos, reminding anyone who encountered it that some species would never surrender, never compromise, and never allow evil to triumph while they still drew breath. The age of humanity was over, but their legacy would endure as long as stars burned in the darkness.